Good morning. I hope you all are doing well today. You certainly look good. I could be better, but I'm doing fine. BR and I would like to thank everybody for all the gifts we get this time of year. It's always very humbling to be loved by so many people, and we never take it for granted. But we want to thank you. I also want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. It's that time of year again. This is when I was a child. Why even now? What? Nothing's changed. It's always been my favorite time of year. I like the lights. I like the movies where there's no cussing in them. I like that's a Hallmark movie to you that aren't married. I just enjoy Christmas period. It's a sad time though. A lot of people have sadness, and we always want to pray for them and visit them if we can. But another thing that always comes up are questions. Sometimes parents are questioned by their children what we do and don't do as a church. And sometimes we're questioned by other people why we aren't, as a church, we aren't more festive in the things that we do, why we don't have nativity scenes and all that kind of stuff. We believe in the birth of the Christ. We talk about it, we teach it. Different times of the year, it's a very important subject, of course. It's the way the Lord came into the world. But we do have certain beliefs about it that are different than, let's say, the major part of the religious world. And I want to talk about a few of those questions. Hopefully, it'll help you explain some of these answers to your friends and maybe family, maybe your children, that maybe you may learn something. We never know, but it seems advisable to me to deal with the matter a little bit. Daddy, why don't we celebrate Christmas at church? A lot of children do. They talk about it at school, and they do, we don't. Why is that? I don't understand. I like to play Joseph in the little play, different. Why don't we do that stuff? There's an objective body of spiritual truth, and this is something that we'll die on it. This is our hill, if you will, that can't be taken away from us. There's an objective body of spiritual truth. That, of course, is the teachings of Jesus Christ. This is what we live by. This is what we go by. In John 8, verses 30 and 32, as Jesus spoke these words, many people believed in him. They weren't believers, they became believers because of what the Lord said on that particular day. And now that they believed, he continued speaking to those Jews who believed him. They believed. Now let's go a little farther in what we have to say. If you abide in my word. I've highlighted the word if because the ifs are very important. If means that this isn't set in stone. It's conditional phrase is what we call it. Conditional phrase. If you do this, then this will happen. Or in God's place, if you do this, God will do that. And this is what Jesus is saying to those who believed. If you abide in my word. To abide is to take up your abode. It's to take your stand on this hill. It's to live by these words. And these words live in you. If you abide in my word, Jesus said, it's his word. It's not our word. It's his word. It's a word that has come to us from out of this world. It does not originate in human hearts. This teaching that he's talking about, what he wants believers to do, the words that he wants believers to follow completely, they do not originate in the human heart. Don't look there for them. They're not going to be there. Jesus said, these are my words. These are words I gave you. And we know what that is. It's the New Testament teachings of the Christ. These are his words. That's the objective body of truth. It's not what I want. It's not what you want. It's what Jesus wants. Okay? That's what he's talking about in our text here. This objective body of truth that he's given to us. In John 12:48, the Lord said, for example, he who rejects me and does not receive my words, he has that which judges him. What? The word that I have spoken will judge him in the last day. Notice what he says. He who does not receive my words, this New Testament of Jesus Christ, this person has rejected me. Now, they may say, oh, how I love Jesus. Oh, how I love Jesus. But Jesus said, if you reject my words, if you don't follow my words, if you don't learn my words, believe my words, live by my words, you have rejected me. This is the straw that breaks the camel's back. To the believers, Jesus said, he who rejects me and does not receive my words, he has one thing that will judge him in the last day. That is the words that Jesus spoke. These will judge him in the last day. These are words that came from heaven. These are words that we're to live by. These are words that we'll be judged by in the last day. We don't have to wonder what judgment's going to be like. You know, you go to court, you don't know what a judge is going to say. A judge may be liberal-minded, and he may let you walk on a crime. Or a judge may be a judge of justice, and he demands justice be meted out. You don't know what a judge is going to do, because judges are human, and they're subject to various types of emotions. But now you're dealing with King Jesus. You don't have to wonder what he's going to judge us by. He's told us, it's my words. I've told you what I want you to do, he's saying in essence. And in the day of judgment, this is what I'm going to judge you by. Did you do it or not? Did you do what I wanted you to do? I know preachers talk a lot. They say a lot of stuff. But did you do what I wanted you to do? I don't care what your preacher says. Did you do what I wanted you to do? If you didn't, you have rejected me. Therefore, I will reject you. That's how important this body of truth is. Everything hangs on it. The entirety of our existence is dependent on it. And we want to live by God's words. Not by what people do, but by what God wants us to do. If you abide in my word, you can add the word then because it's implied. Then you are my disciples indeed. Believers are not necessarily disciples. Remember in verse 30 rather, they became believers. And then Jesus said to these believers, if you believers abide in my word, then you will be my disciples indeed. It's believing what he said and then doing what he said. This is what we strive to do as God's children. You shall know the truth, and that truth shall make you free, the Lord said. If we want to know the truth, we'll find the truth. And we'll be able to understand it. And then we'll just do what the Lord would have us to do. Okay? Now keep that in mind. Whenever we discuss anything, it's built on this foundation. What does Jesus say? This is the all-important question. What does Jesus say? One must love the truth. 2 Thessalonians 2, 10 through 12. Paul talks about those who did not receive love of the truth that they might be saved. They could have, but they didn't. For this reason, God will send them strong delusion. Looks like the truth, smells like the truth, but it's not the truth. He'll allow, he won't send it, but he'll permit it to be sent. It's referred to as the permissive will of God by theologians. God will, for this reason, because people do not love the truth, for that reason, God will send a strong delusion that they should believe the lie. They'll find something to believe. If they don't love the truth, they'll find something in lieu of the truth. If they don't love the God of heaven, they'll find another God to worship. The Lord will allow that to happen. It's for that reason, not loving the truth, that all this happens, the strong delusion. And they believe the lie, and that they may be condemned. Why? It's not because they believed the lie, but it's because they did not believe the truth. They did not love the truth. In Romans 1:28, Paul spoke of those. They did not like to retain God in their knowledge. Aldous Huxley, he wrote I don't know if he wrote it, but he authored a little document referred to as Confessions of an Atheist. And he was old and for some reason burying his soul. I don't know why. But he said, there was no reason for me to be an atheist. There's no proof that there is no God. Everything points to the fact that there must be some type of a creator. And so why did I become an atheist? It's because, in essence, he didn't like the truth. He was a sexually promiscuous person. And if he accepted God, he would have to accept the restraints of marriage. And he didn't want to. He didn't want to live that way. He wanted to be footloose and fancy-free, so to speak. And he said, for that reason, I didn't believe in God. He didn't want to retain God in his knowledge because he wanted to be free in that way, to live as he wanted to without being judged by other peoples. Therefore, God gave these people over to a debased mind, people who decided, I don't want to live the way this God would have me to live. I want to live a different way. I want to have a different life. God gave them over. He gave them up. He allowed them to think that people transition from a male to a female. He liked them to think that it's normal for two men to be married to one another or two women. He let people think anything they wanted to think, if that's what they wanted to think. Oh, this was written 2,000 years ago. It happened before. We could just as well write it today, couldn't we? Well, I think it is being written today. God judged them, didn't he? God came down hard on the peoples of Sodom and Gomorrah, for example. Remember? And now he's written a similar letter for us. It's a warning. We don't want to forget God or abandon God. We must live by the truth. Sorry about that. Colossians 3:17, Paul said, whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Whatever you do in word or deed, do all of it because Jesus authorized you to do it. It's very important. Deuteronomy 18:17 through 19, the Lord said to me, Moses that is, I will raise up for them a prophet like you, Moses, from among their brothers, among the Jewish peoples. I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. That, of course, is Jesus. And whoever will not listen to my words that he shall speak, Jesus, I myself will require it of him. I will judge them. How will he judge them? By the word. He already told us, John 12:48. I will judge them by the very words I gave them. That's how important the words are. Now, with that said, let's talk about Christmas. Christmas is not a Bible subject. You won't find the word Christmas in the Bible. It's not a creation of God. It's something that took place, but it was different than what the modern version is, we'll call it, that exists today. The earliest known Christmas, anything that was ever called Christmas, was found in a 4th century manuscript. The 4th century, before you ever find the word Christmas. And this is according to the Catholic Encyclopedia. Now keep in mind, Catholics are the ones that invented Christmas. They know more about it than anybody else. And they've got in their encyclopedias, they've got a great deal of information about Christmas. And what they have to say is really abundant, much more than what I can say in this little time frame. But the year was 336 AD, 300 years after the birth of Christ, before you ever read about anybody observing something called Christmas. And there wasn't many people that observed it. It was really a very small group of people that observed it at that time. It was not a universal thing. In the Eastern churches, you don't read about it until the year 378. In Constantinople, you don't read about it until the year 379. In Western churches, it was in 380 before you read about it. In Antioch, it was in 388. Disappeared from Antioch, and it was reestablished around 400 AD. These are isolated instances of Christmas. They were trying to get this started, and they were having a hard time because people were resisting it. Why? Because it wasn't of God. It was of man. They knew that, and they didn't want to have it. But church leaders are the ones that wanted it. They had reasons for wanting it. They wanted to draw more people to their churches, and this was one of the ways they chose to do it. Back at that time, the pagans, for example, they used a lot of entertainment as a means of drawing people into their churches. Well, when the Christians, the church came along, it was very straightforward, like we do today. It was very straightforward. And the Christians, they would have a day like today, or Thursday rather. On Thursday, the pagans are going to worship their gods, and they're going to have a party. And they actually have a festival that lasts for a week. And, they just have a big time worship. It's called Sol Invictus. It's the worship of the sun god. Very popular back in the 4th century Rome. But at that time, the Christians had nothing. And because they had nothing, what did they do? Well, they went and celebrated with the pagans. They didn't come to church that Sunday. They were over celebrating with the pagans. They didn't give their money that Sunday to the church. They gave it to the pagans. They were having a big time. They partied with the pagans for a week. And the church leaders said, this isn't good. We got to get our people back. And they came up with Christmas. That's what they did. They used Sol Invictus the very same day, December 25. They used Sol Invictus as the day to have their celebration. They would call it Christmas, which means Christ Mass, or a Mass for Christ. And it went over like gangbusters eventually. But it took time to get it started. They pushed and they pushed and they pushed, trying to get it started. and we read about it in the Catholic Encyclopedia, of course. The observance of Christmas as a religious holy day in the first three centuries was not universal, not like it is today. It was just here, there, and over yonder. It was basically unknown by most of the world, this thing called Christmas. You remember, they didn't have telephones and such, and things took a long time to travel to the outskirts. In other writings, according to Cyril Martingale, in other writings of this time, there were different days people chose for Christmas. There was May 20, April 18, April 19, March 25, January 2, November 17, November 20. These are some of the days that were suggested as Christmas. Now, some of these days are probably closer to the time that Jesus was born than December 25. Late March, early April was probably the time Jesus was born. Well, why would you say something like that? Well, the shepherds were out in the field with their flocks. When do you take your flocks out to the field? When the grass starts growing. When the wintertime, you keep them in close to town and you feed them out of the barn. But when the grass starts growing, you take your flocks back out into the field and let them eat the new green grass. When does the grass turn green? Usually around springtime, usually around late March or early April. Might be the time of Jesus' birth. I don't know that for certain, but it seems more logical than December 25 when there's snow on the ground. Sheep aren't going to dig for grass. They go out to the fields. They would starve to death before they would get to eat. Christ's Mass. December 25 was the date of celebration. As I said, this was the date they worshiped Sol Invictus, the sun god that was very popular among the pagans throughout. Seven centuries at this time. Winter solstice began December 25. What does that mean? That's the shortest day of the year. Ours is today, December 21. Back in the first few centuries, the pagans, they had December 25 as the first day of winter, or winter solstice, and this was the day that the Christians chose to have Christmas in honor of the sun god. In Malachi chapter 4, verse 2, we read about the Son of Righteousness. It's the birthday of the unconquered Sun, S-U-N. The church leaders in the 4th century, they talked about the birthday of the unconquered Son, S-O-N. It's just a play on words there. In Malachi, the Lord said, "But to you who fear my name, the Son of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings. You shall go out and grow fat like stall-fed calves." This was the selection of December 25 as the day of the birth of Christ. The Son of Righteousness will arise, and according to the pagans, according to the world at that time, this was Sol Invictus, the arising of winter, or the arising of the sun god that they worshipped. I don't know why this isn't working very well. In a manuscript by 12th century Syrian bishop, we read the following. It was a custom of the pagans to celebrate on the same 25 December the birthday of the sun, at which they kindled lights in token of festivity. In these solemnities and revelries, the Christians also took part. This was, they wanted to have a good time, like the pagans did. Accordingly, when doctors of the church perceived that the Christians had a leaning to this festival, They took counsel and resolved that the true nativity should be solemnized on that day. They wanted their people back. That's what it was. That's what goes on today. All this entertainment in churches today, clowns for Christ, wrestling with Christ, all this stuff. It's all an attempt to get people into the church building. Well, that's the same thing they were doing in the 4th century. Nothing changes. Nothing changes. We drive different cars. We wear different suits. But as far as human behavior, it's the same as it's always been. There's no difference in the way people think and behave. Christmas is not a Christian holy day. It's not. Christmas is not from heaven. Christmas is of men. It's the product of the Roman Catholic Church. Denominationalism gave us Christmas. Why don't we observe Christmas the way most religious bodies do? Well, basically the Lord didn't tell us to, and therefore we don't do it. Colossians 3:17. Whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus. Do all because Jesus wants you to do it. He told us nothing about observing his birthday. We are to observe his death, and we will in just a few minutes. But he said nothing about observing his birthday. When you think about the death of Christ, we know basically the year he died, if we know the year he was born. He died somewhere around 29 or 30 A.D. We know that he died on a Friday. We know that he died at the time of the Passover, which was probably late March or April. We know that he died at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The Lord wanted us to observe the death of Christ, and he gave us many specifics so we could do that very thing. But the birth of Christ, there's not many specifics. Oh, what other people did, yes. But as far as what time of day, for example, Jesus was born, I don't know. Nobody else knows either. It's of human origin. It's not from God. Well, people have things to say about us. We don't honor Jesus. If we respected Jesus, we would celebrate his birth. We do celebrate his birth. We do it every Sunday. When we celebrate his death, we celebrate the entirety of his existence. And we commemorate it when we eat the Lord's Supper. But to set apart one day, we do not do that because the Lord doesn't want us to do that. And when people criticize us for what we do, we remember the words of Paul the Apostle in Colossians 2:16. Let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding a festival or new moon or Sabbath. People will judge you by what you do and don't do, Paul said. Don't let their judgment bother you. You know what you're supposed to do. Do that. And let everything else rest. Christmas. Did Jesus want us to celebrate the day of his birth? If he did, why didn't he say so? 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 21. Paul said, test all things. Some versions say, I want you to prove all things. And then we are to hold fast to what is good. Can I prove that Jesus wanted us to observe his birthday? Answer, no. I can prove he wanted us to observe his death. I can't prove he wants us to observe his birthday on December 25. Its origin, according to the people that brought us Christmas, Christians, Christmas as a religious celebration was unknown before 300 A.D. And here's what we read from Origen. Both Irenaeus and Tertullian omit it from their list of feasts. These are two scholars in the 2nd century A.D. They had a list they published of the various feasts of the Jews and the Christians. And there was no such thing as Christmas on these lists. In 245, Origen of Alexandria, he was commenting on Leviticus 12, and when he did, he made this statement. He said, "Only sinners celebrate birthdays." Now you got to remember, this man's a Jewish scholar. He said only sinners celebrate birthdays. This was in the year 245, 200 years after Jesus was born. Only sinners celebrate birthdays, he said. It's not in the Bible, but this was the practice of the Jew. This is how they felt about birthdays. Something that only a sinner would do. And he published 2 sinners that did celebrate their birthday that were well known. The Pharaoh of Egypt, he celebrated his birthday in Genesis chapter 40, verses 20 through 22. And Herod Antipas, he celebrated his birthday, Mark 6, verse 21. Both of these men, both pagans, both unrighteous men, both who died in sin, both of these men were sinners. And these are the only examples we find of those who celebrated their birthdays. But as for the Jew, they didn't celebrate birthday. They only celebrated their deaths. The Jew didn't celebrate birthdays. In Ecclesiastes 7:1, Solomon wrote, "The day of death is better than the day of one's birth." If you think about it, it's true. The day a person's born, he comes into the world, what's going to happen? He's going to suffer. He's going to suffer quite a bit. There's a lot of pain that comes along with life, a lot of heartache that comes along with life. But when you die, you go to be with God. You live in heaven. There's no heartache, there's no tears, there's no sorrow. That being the case, that being true, isn't the day of birth less than the day of one's death? We celebrate it just the opposite. We celebrate the day of the birth. We mourn the day of death. Does that mean we're wrong? No, it doesn't mean we're wrong. But this was the Jewish mentality during the time of Christ. Now I ask you this question. Do you think there's any doubt that no one celebrated the birthday of Jesus Christ? According to the Jews, and according to what would have been the early Christians, that would have been a bad thing, not a good thing. That would have been a time to mourn. The day of his death was the time to rejoice, and rightly so. Rightly so. The Lord said nothing about celebrating his birth. Frankly, I don't think he wanted us to. If he wanted us to, he would have said so. He didn't say so. Maybe he didn't want us to. Now, I want to make Jesus happy. I want Jesus to be happy. I want him to like me. I want him to embrace me in the day of the judgment. I'm going to go by what I know. I'm not going to go by what I don't know. Because what I don't know makes me nervous. And all the information we have is that we don't worship Christmas as a holy day. In Deuteronomy 29:29, Moses wrote, "The secret things belong to the Lord our God. But those things which are revealed, they belong to us and to our children forever." The things God said nothing about, that's his business. The things God spoke about, that's our business. And we know the difference, that we may do all the words of this law. Christmas is a cultural holiday. I'm going to stop right here. What do I mean by that? Christmas is a holiday much like Thanksgiving. There are a lot of preachers, or I shouldn't say a lot, I don't know how many there are, but some preachers say it's wrong to celebrate Christmas or to enjoy the festivities of Christmas. We canceled our Bible class one year because Christmas fell on Sunday, and we canceled our Bible class and our evening service in order to give families time to come together and celebrate this day as a family. And we thought it was good for families to engage in this activity. We canceled our services, and boy, we got in all kinds of trouble over that. But if I had to do it again, I would. Because we're supposed to strengthen families, not injure families. And we believed that we would injure. If churches decided not to do that, that was their business. They could choose to do what they want to, but we can choose what we want to also. We didn't violate the scriptures. But sometimes you're judged for doing right. It's a cultural holiday. Thanksgiving, Memorial Day, Labor Day. These are days established by the government, days on the calendar that most people get off work for, days for us to come together with our families as much as possible and enjoy one another. It's not wrong to observe those cultural days. Christmas is a cultural day. Well, somebody says, well, it started out by the Roman Church. That makes it a religious day. A lot of things started out as one thing, but they come to be something different. Take the days of the week, for example. We call Sunday. That's in honor of the God, the sun. Monday. That's in honor of the God, the moon. Wednesday, honoring Woden. Woden's Day became Wednesday. Thursday, from the god Thor. Saturday, from the god Saturn. Does that mean we have to change all of our days of the week? There's a chance that you may not know anything that I just said. That may not have been a part of your information. But there was a time when that was a religious title. But what it was then is not what it is today. And there's nothing wrong with us saying Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. The same thing can be said about Christmas. It may have been a religious holy day at one time. It's not today. Most of the world that celebrates Christmas doesn't do it as a religious observance. Even the people who are religious, they don't observe it as a religious holy day. They observe it pretty much like you and I do. They get together on that day with their family. They exchange gifts. They eat too much. They sit on the couch and watch football and fall asleep. It's kind of the American thing to do. But it's not a religious holy day. Not for most people. Some people, yeah. Not most people. It's not wrong. You shouldn't feel any guilt. And if anybody gives you any lip, you say, come and see John. He'll tell you. We'll get him straightened out, won't we, Jeremy? Jeremy be standing there with me. I run my mouth, and he looks at him. And then we're safe. Okay, we don't observe Christmas as a religious holiday. Jesus didn't tell us to. But we can observe Christmas as a cultural holiday, just like we can Thanksgiving. But we're not supposed to eat too much. The rest of it we can do. Man, I eat too much. I get all them gifts from everybody. I stay full for about a month. That's got to quit. Man, I tell you, it's got to quit. I think I've gained 15 pounds already. It isn't even Christmas yet. I love you all, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas. I want you to be safe, be very safe, be careful. Some people, they get a little drunky and they drive cars and they become very dangerous. Drive defensively. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday. We got Bible class on Tuesday this week. Yeah, we have Bible class on Tuesday. Okay. If you're not a Christian, our primary goal as far as our visitors are concerned, those who are not Christians, is try to persuade you to understand Christ, believe Him, and become a Christian. You do that by believing what He has said, repenting of your sins, and being immersed in water for forgiveness of those sins. As Christians, we strive to the best of our ability to do what Jesus wants us to do. We're not perfect. We don't say we're perfect. We're not close to being perfect, but we're working on it. We're doing the best we can do at this point in our life. And Jesus said that's good enough. You do what you can do, and I'll take care of the rest. And we believe that, and we live by that. But sometimes we slip, don't we? Sometimes we need the prayers of our brothers and sisters because we need just a little more than what we've got to offer.